Hello, my name is Ethan Hewlin. Like you, I live in a world that never stops moving. Also like you, I have stories. These are my stories, the true stories of a tryhard. Welcome back to True Stories of a Tryhard. I'm Ethan Hewlin, and this week it's a very special episode because I'm going to dive a little bit deeper. Excuse me. I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into why I do what I do. I started this show in August of 2019 with the goal of making talking about mental health more normal. I did this because there aren't a lot of male-identifying people, such as myself, who talk about it. At least, not as much as those who are not men. So, besides that, why did I start this show? Mental health has always been something that has been of interest to me ever since I was diagnosed, back when I was probably 11 or 12 years old. I've told this story more than once. You can listen to other episodes to get a better deep dive into this, but the long and short of it is, I was kind of screwed from the get-go as far as what sort of mental health problems I'd be dealing with, because there's a genetic history on both sides of my family of anxiety and depression. But the divorce of my parents kind of exacerbated that. And I've been living with this for a little bit less than half of my life, 8 or 9 years. But even though my first therapist was a man, there weren't a lot of voices out there that are publicly available for all people that provided insight into what mental health is like for men. Now, my content isn't exclusively for men. That's not what I'm trying to say here. It's more that I want all people to hear the perspective of a man on mental health from him. Does that make sense? I hope so. If not, let me know. In October of 2018, as those of you who have listened for a while will know, my family moved away, and I moved in with my grandparents. And during that time, it was very tumultuous, and I didn't have a really good way to kind of get my feelings about that situation out there. It took me, a little bit less than a year, but the idea of a show where I'd ideally wanted someone else to do this with me, but the guy I was going to do it with kind of didn't want to, and he didn't want to commit, but I still wanted to make it happen, so I did. It has not been easy, especially now that I'm on my own and I have a lot more that I need to do. And that's kind of why I haven't been uploading as frequently, and the weird hiatus I took. But let me assure you that I am working that out so that way I can have more consistent content for you all in the future, but understand I got a lot of stuff going on right now. Where were we? Oh, you're right. It hasn't been easy. I had never really been that comfortable telling other people that weren't my therapists or even my parents, family, or friends what was going on with me. I'm usually a very private kind of guy. I don't really like people with their nose all up in my business. But through this, at this point, almost 2-year process, I have slowly, but surely, been able to open myself up on first encounter a bit easier. Like, I recently started seeing a new therapist, and that went a lot smoother than it did with my first therapist. Partially because I'm twice the age I was then, and partially because I'd already had that experience of learning how to open up to other people. And this show is a big part of that, because I know that there are hundreds of you who listen throughout the globe and tune in consistently. And for that, I thank you, because without you, this show would not be possible. And while I am the one making this show and putting it out as frequently as allows, it is you that really makes this happen. The feedback I've received, the compliments, and even weird comments I've received have all slowly gotten me to where I am today. And throughout this journey that I've been on, throughout these past I keep saying 2 years, it's not quite 2 years yet. Throughout these past year and 8 months, I have grown more than I ever thought possible as a person. Part of that was being stuck inside during a pandemic, which made me self-reflect a lot. And if you've listened for any length of time, you probably know I'm best not left alone with my thoughts, because bad things happen when I'm left alone with my thoughts. And even saying that, I wouldn't necessarily have been upfront about it when I even was in high school, because I didn't want people to know I wasn't perfect, because I had an image to uphold. I was the smart kid, the gifted kid, the kid with all the answers, at least academically. But sometimes people would come to me for advice, and I wouldn't always know the answer. And pretty sure I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. My least favorite phrase in the English language is "I don't know." When I don't know something, and somebody asks me, "Ethan, what do you think about this?" and it's something I've never heard of, the phrase "I don't know" does not usually cross my mind at first. When it comes to not knowing things, it's one of the few occasions where I mince words. I usually say, "I don't think so," or "talk to me later," or something along those lines, because I don't want people to think that I'm ignorant and don't know things. Hey tryhards, Ethan here. I want to talk to you guys about Patreon. Patreon is a donation service, a monthly subscription service where you donate money to me to support the show, to support the growth of it, whether that means merchandise or more podcasts or other things of that nature. And I would really appreciate if you guys will be willing and able to give just a little bit of whatever extra money you may have. Because while the show will always be free for everyone to listen, the way to make it isn't. And I'm in college, and things are expensive. So I'd appreciate any little amount that you're able to give. So thank you for donating, and thank you even more for listening. Because the fact of the matter is, I like being the guy who knows things. I know, shocking. But kind of to wrap it back around, that's another reason I started this show. There's a lot I didn't know about my own conditions, and a lot that I'm sure other people didn't know about either, which is another driving factor for me to both start this show and keep it going, is because there's always more to find out. There's always more to explore, always more to improve. And it's also just genuinely interesting to me, finding out about these different things that people experience every day that I may not. And even the things that I do, learning more about them so I can get to know myself and those like me just a little bit better. But ultimately, though the show is sometimes educational, sometimes storytelling, hence the name, the whole point is to make a casual conversation about what's going on in your head. That should be the new tagline for this show. I'll update that later. And I understand that the stigma around talking about mental health has significantly gone down in recent years, especially now. I think now is better a time to talk about this more than ever because we've all experienced at least a little bit of isolation and longing to see others and be connected with other people. And admittedly, that's beautiful. You might say, Ethan, why are you saying that this traumatic experience we've been through for the past 14 months or so is beautiful? Well, if I've learned anything throughout my life, it's that the worst experiences we have, regardless of the duration, the intensity, what have you, if we emerge from them, there will always be something to be learned and to be celebrated. We've learned a lot of things over the past 15 months about ourselves, about our society, about the systems that we have. But those other two, we're not going to talk about right now. Right now, ourselves. The reason I make this show is for people. And having done as much self-reflection as I have over the course of these 15 months, I genuinely hope that somewhere out there, someone in the world who is listening to this show, or even someone who's not, or knows somebody who may need to hear this, has been self-reflecting and has been able to get to know themselves more and recognize, hey, there's something wrong with me. What can I do to fix it? Getting to know yourself is always a good thing, regardless of the connotation. Because the best person to know what's going on with you is you. Not everybody makes obvious what's going on inside their head. My parents have to tell me frequently, Ethan, you have to tell us what's going on with you. We're not mind readers. Well, I'm not. I never claimed to be. And that's why I want all of you, as kind of a challenge this week, I want you to share this with someone who you think could benefit from it. Someone who's been talking about doing some self-reflecting and just thinking about what's going on with themselves, with the world, how they see the world, how they see themselves, and just their general paradigm. And that's another reason I make this show. It's because I believe that my message is one that everyone needs to hear. Regardless of age, race, sexuality, gender, religion, nationality, doesn't matter. And though I can only give you a limited perspective into the mind of a college student in the Midwestern United States who's been dealing with anxiety and depression, I hope that those of you who can relate to at least one of those things can find some solace, some help, some feeling that you are not alone, and that there are others out there like you who go through very similar things and are able to lift you up in some way. So, that being said, stay tuned for the next episode that I'm uploading right after this. Yes, it's double episode week because I missed last week because of external circumstances. And we're going to be talking about how you can destigmatize mental health to those who may not necessarily be acquainted with their own. So, thank you, listeners, for tuning in this week to True Stories of a Tryhard. You can find me on Instagram at ethan.t.hulen. That is Hulen. You can find me on Twitter at etphonehome. The O's are zeros, the E's are threes. You can find the podcast on Instagram and Twitter at True Stories Pod. The best way to get the word out about podcasts is via word of mouth and social media. So please, please, please share this with your friends, share it on your social media, and if you post it in some way and tag me, you will get featured on the official podcast accounts. And please feel free to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. I would very much appreciate it. I'll be back with more stories next week. So until then, This is Ethan Hewlin signing off.